Every tomorrow should have the people you love in it. Screening tests can detect changes before cancer develops or can catch cancer early when it may be easier to treat. Tell someone today, I love you, get screened. Visit cancer.org/getscreened to learn more.
You hear that sound? That's your wake-up call to download FanDuel to start getting more excitement, drama, and action out of every single play. Because that sound, that's the sound of the clock ticking on the 2023 NFL season. Now, I know what you're saying. Hey, voiceover guy, there's plenty of football left. And to that I say, well, aren't you lucky? You've still got time to cherish the season before February comes around and Sunday is just that day you head to the grocery store to stock up on oat milk.
Great, 50 cents off. Woohoo.
The NFL season is precious, so this year get even more out of every pass, every rush, and every tackle with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Make every moment more with FanDuel. 21 plus and present in Pennsylvania. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome everyone to Sage Advice with Sage, me, your host. And today I have the incredible guest, Chelsea Poe. How are you, Chelsea?
I'm doing really great. How are you doing? I'm so excited to come on your podcast.
So happy to have you on my podcast. Of course, I was on yours at some point last year. I think it was last January.
Yeah, you were on twice, and now I don't have any responsibilities to do anything, so it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely easier to be the guest.
Yeah, then you're just like, oh, I don't have to do anything. It's great.
Totally understandable. So, Chelsea, for my listeners who might not know about you, how would you sort of just describe yourself, what you do?
Yeah, I'm a porn performer, if you didn't guess. Sin and I've performed together a lot of times now. I would say 5 or 6, something like that.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a trans femme. I moved to the Bay Area about 10 years ago now to pursue porn full time. Kind of jumped in during the whole like queer porn thing going on here. I worked at the Kink Armory for about 3 years as a cam model and just kind of been pursuing BDSM kind of ever since, and dipped my toe in mainstream trans porn for a minute. It was a lot. And yeah, I'm now just stoked to produce my own shit and just, make BDSM because it's really what I moved out here for.
Yeah, so your goal, your primary focus is more on the BDSM side of things.
For sure.
Yeah, and with what you produce yourself, it tends to be more fetish oriented, like not 100% of the time. I know we made some sort of just kinky sex tape stuff, but well, I shouldn't say kinky.
I mean, it was like
kind of. I guess
there
I
was
just
an
meant
element
like
to
sexy.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like so much when I first got into this industry, I got like pushed into the whole like TS porn world, even though like the people who I was inspired by were people like Stoya and Sasha Grey and like what you did like with Belladonna for Strap Dykes. Like that was one of my favorite pornos. I was like, this is amazing. This is actual like people who I want to see fucking in lesbian scenes and it not being some like super softcore boring thing. And like seeing that reflection in mainstream porn for me was like, oh shit, I can do this. And then when I got here, everyone was like, don't you want to be on shemale.com or whatever? And I'm like, no, not really. No.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, not really. Gosh, well, that's definitely something I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
So this is just a perfect little segue. So you came into the porn world. You came out to California.
Yes. Yeah. I'm from Michigan.
Yes, from Michigan. And you were like, well, I want to be sort of making this type of porn that I'm seeing with like women just really going for it.
For sure.
Not necessarily so soft and like, oh, here's how you like play with a clit lightly,
Yeah.
versus like
I was like, how long is it going to be until I start shooting gangbangs? Like, that's how I came out here. Like, that
yes.
was my attitude of like, I'm not coming out here to do boring porn. I want to do really extreme shit. But like,
Yeah.
still be vocal about being like, hey, don't call trans women slurs. Don't do offensive ass
Yes.
shit. So I
Yes.
think that's why like Sasha Grey was like a really big person for me, because I was like, oh shit, you spoke out against shit. And like when I first heard about her, it was from one of my favorite bands, Semi Precious Weapons, and I was like, "Oh, she's gonna be like this super softcore porn performer." And then I was like,
Mm,
"Whoa, that's
yeah.
gangbangs and shit." I love that
Yeah.
stuff, but I never felt
Yeah.
like I could do that while having a voice, you know?
Yeah, totally. And so that was the thing, is just that, like, so from my perspective, having, I've been in for a while,
Hmm.
and I've been on my own. You don't arrive in this world understanding everything. And so for me, like the past 15-ish years, I've been on my own sort of journey with like understanding transness. Um, and so, when those words, when those slurs like were first kind of like coming into my consciousness at all, and maybe like early 2000s,
Yeah,
I was just like, oh, okay, these are just terms we use to refer to trans
for
people, I guess.
sure.
And then it was really you. It was you that shined a light on this. I mean, it was you that
Thanks.
shined a light on like that these are harmful slurs, that these are hurtful terms. And I think that just the fact that they were being used with such
Everywhere.
proliferation everywhere. And it's these very dehumanizing, even if the terms themselves weren't, it's like the way that they're used
Yeah,
was. And so to me too, I thought it was like what the bravery that you had, like the courage to go on to, and Twitter's a different place now
yeah,
than it was
it's
back
not
then.
what it was, because when I first joined the
Uh-uh.
industry, you had to have a Twitter, and that's how you got cast. That's how you networked everything, and now it's
Yes.
completely unusable.
Yeah, I mean now it's just trash. You say one thing and then like no one's willing to listen, or it's just like
Yeah,
the arguments they're pointless, and like everyone kind of sees that at this point.
yeah, everyone's just like mean to strangers online for
Yeah,
no
yeah,
reason, and you're just like, no one's really getting anything out of this.
yeah. But so at the time, still, it was like, I mean, you made the difference, and now the trans porn that's made at that time was full of all these slurs, and like now these companies, they won't even use those slurs
Yeah,
anymore.
everyone
and
changed.
then and then like now it's mainstream.
Yeah,
So I'm interested in like your take of, like how you felt for when you first were taking a stand, like how that felt for you, and to see the change
yeah.
happen,
I
how that
think I was
feels.
really naive going into it, being from a really small town. I'm from a city named Holland, which is only about 30,000 people. It's like a mini Netherlands in the middle of the Midwest.
Oh my god, I love that. Okay,
Oh,
so
have you
that's
been
on my.
there?
No, but I'm
Oh, you were
going. That's
really
on my
close though.
list.
You were
Yeah,
really
I
close
am
though.
now.
Yeah, yeah, it's like 2 hours north of Chicago. So it's like on the
Oh
water. So
yeah.
you just go up. There's a tulip festival there. It's cool if you want to see like all the Dutch shit. Like
Yes.
our entire economy relies on a tulip festival. We have
Yes.
windmills and all that shit.
Oh my
So
gosh, can't
like
wait.
I think my understanding of, oh, I can raise an issue and people will like reasonably listen to you because I'm from a small city. And that's not how it was. Like all these companies had millions upon millions of dollars invested into this shit, and there's like,
Yeah.
what, people are literally being like, you're gonna destroy porn. Porn is gonna be over because of you. People told me that shit.
What?
And I'm like,
What?
I don't think it's going to be. And they're like, if we can't call trans women she-male, no one will watch transport ever again. I'm just like,
Wow.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I just wasn't prepared for it. I started like the whole petition to remove slurs when I was on a JetBlue flight and I couldn't fall asleep. And it's just like, maybe
Yeah.
I should just do this right now. So I did it, and then it just like kind of blew the fuck up. So I think for me, I was like, I was saying all this shit when I was a cam girl in Michigan. So no one cared about it until I became relevant in mainstream trans porn. So
Hmm.
that's when everyone freaked the fuck out about it.
Now, was this before or after you moved to California?
It was right after I moved here. It was probably like 3
Okay.
months after I moved here.
And then do you think that, like, for example, when you participated, when you say mainstream porn, you know, when you participated in like some Nika Noel productions, like, is that what you
Um,
mean?
no, it was a little bit before Nika because so I
Okay.
did all that shit and then Nika was like, I like what you're doing. Like you're
Yeah.
actually taking a stand for shit and you're
Yeah.
like being genuine. So before that I like shot for like Ruby and shit, which
Yeah.
not a great experience. So they like made me fake all my orgasms and fake cum everywhere and I'm just like, I'm not in porn to do fake things.
Yeah.
Like when I got into porn, I'm like, I want to do extreme things. I want to really push myself as a performer.
Right.
So I think it was after I started doing that and I got really just pushed into the TS porn world because they just were like, oh, well, you're a trans woman who's doing porn. You have to be part of our world. Even though
Yeah.
my whole rest of my life was in queer porn and shooting for Trouble Films and
Mm-hmm.
we were making fucking Mystic at the time. I was like
Yeah.
doing for Crash Pad and working at the Armory 5-6 days a week.
Yes.
So it's just like a really I think they just like viewed me as like, oh, you're just another trans porn girl.
Right. They were like, where else can we put you? What else can we do with you
Yeah.
besides put you in this? And I feel like, you know, so let me just say my, what it looks like from the outside and you tell me,
Yeah.
but you know, you are one of those you are a trans performer who is like, does not identify with your cock in this, you know, in that way as far as using it,
Yeah, I
like
mean like
penetrate.
I can squirt. It's cool and all, but
Yeah.
like I don't really get off like topping people with my junk. It's like
Yeah.
hella sensitive, so it's just not really how I have sex.
Right. And with like Crash Pad and Trouble Films and even Kink in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
like at least what you were doing at Kink, you can have sex with your body the way that you have sex with your body
Yeah.
and not feel like forced that you know, you work for a company like Groovy or some of the, you know, even these days is where everything's more accepted, but even still, like with mainstream
Yeah, there's some
trans, like I've done mainstream trans movies and it's like, nope, that she's got to get hard and she has to penetrate you and that has
yeah,
to happen. And I
basically.
think, yeah, and that's like really frustrating. And I hope that we're gonna move beyond that at some
I
point.
mean,
But
I think it's
yeah, you
better
talk.
now, but like back in the day, girls would just straight go off hormones and like go through
Yeah,
massive endocrine problems and risk their whole endocrine system collapsing for porn gigs. And
right.
that was encouraged. And it's just like, or like directors being like, oh, just take this pill. You'll get
Yeah.
hard. It's fine. And not tell you what it is. And then, you
Uh,
know, you can have something later on in the day and it reacts badly, which happened to me
yeah.
before. And then, you know, I had a really bad experience with a really bad drug reaction.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a lot better now, but I think it's just giving trans women options and agency. And I think like particularly this last year I've interviewed for like a lot of BDSM studios that I
Hmm.
could have interviewed for maybe 5 years ago. And just like
Yeah.
how flipped it is where it's like, what do you want to do? Because they're
Yes.
gonna treat you like how they treat the cis women who go through, where they're like, what's your fantasy? How can we fulfill this? Where especially back in the day in trans porn, it was like, you need to do this, this, or this, or we can't cast you and you're not gonna be a porn star, and like all this
Yeah.
kind of gatekeeping
Yes.
behavior.
Yes, and very restrictive.
Mhm.
And I mean, what I like to see is that this shift is happening so much, like you said, that yes, with trans performers, but also with all performers being like now with everyone is so cautious isn't quite the right word. It's like we've all been made aware that we shouldn't be trying to coerce people into doing things they
For
don't
real.
want to
And like
do.
even just like talking about performer mental health, like
Yes,
6 years ago
exactly.
at AVN, if someone on stage and was like performer mental health, people would like be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where now if you go
Yeah,
to award shows or conventions, it's like such a topic. And I even think
it's a
just how
part of
porn,
it.
yeah, even how porn is viewed, like people go on stage and talk about porn as art at award shows now. That was not
Yeah,
happening 8 years ago. If someone would have done that, they
yeah,
would have been laughed at.
yeah.
Like it's just so different how much this industry has changed in the last 10 years of being in here. It was so, I was talking to Courtney about yesterday. I'm like, everyone was so mean in porn 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's true. Mean, and then also it was So, I mean, even 10 years ago, I mean, I think we started getting a lot of female directors in the like mid to late 2000s, which was cool to see. And then a lot of small indie producers coming out like me and you and Courtney's been around for a long time. But yeah. And then so from there, it's kind of like we're concerned all with each other in our community, but then you have the more mainstream, and it was a lot of male directors, and it was like everything has to be this way. You have to have this, and this in a scene for us to be able to sell it, and
it was
stuff
very
like
formulaic.
that. Yeah, and I feel that since I hate to say it, so Pornhub is the thing that sort of messed up the industry for quite some time. And that's what pushed me to start making my own stuff and to start making custom videos and to learn how to do that for myself. And then, so that's the silver lining of that for me and a lot of other people like me. But then OnlyFans came. And so as problematic and troublesome as it can be, it really showed performers that anyone can be the producer. Anyone can be the creator. You have your phone in your pocket. You can be the one making it.
I think the technology is a big thing.
Yeah, the technology of that, but also just the fact of that being like, anyone can do this. And then models started doing it and realizing like, I don't even have to go to a porn set to make whatever, like $800, $1,000 or whatever on a porn set and be treated however they're going to be treating me.
Yeah.
I can stay home and make more money than that myself. So now it's like the way that performers are treated on set, the standard, the bar has been fucking raised. Because when I first got in the industry, it was like, I need that money. I need that gig. This is how I'm paying my bills. So I have to say yes to everything. And, and it's not like I was saying yes to things I didn't want to do, but there were times that I did, or I said yes to things that like kind of made me uncomfortable, but it was like, well, I need the money and I need to get shot more, so I'm going to do it. And like those days are just over, like for people coming in now.
Real.
And, so how was that for you? That sort of that aspect.
I mean, I feel that when I first moved here, it was like, I need to shoot porn to pay rent. And now it's like, well, I have all these films that get royalties, and now I've always cammed throughout all of this. So that's always been a really core thing for me. But it's just so different now where everyone can shoot. Everyone has a place to sell porn now, where especially when you started, you were still like in the era of where studios had all the power, essentially. When I joined, I would say studios probably had like 90% of the power.
Yeah.
And now, like, I think it's really changed even what a porn director is. When you look at someone like Ricky Greenwood or Caden Cross, like, they're not directing like people did 10 years ago. You have to have it be these bigger concepts now and actually view it as film. And like, when people talk shit about mainstream porn, who are usually have nothing to do with porn anymore, I'm like, you don't know what mainstream porn is right now. What mainstream porn is actually really creative and really cool and really out there.
Yeah.
Where
well, because it's just, I think a lot of people think mainstream porn is what you see on the front page of Pornhub, and that's not. That's just generic porn. Like, I don't know what else to call it, but that's usually what I end up calling it. I'm like, that's just the generic stuff. And when people like queer people or people who appreciate like more lesbian porn and stuff like that, and they are just crying to the heavens like, it just doesn't exist, there's nothing good. I'm like, that's because you're popping on Pornhub and you're seeing what's on the front page, and that and all that is the most popular stuff. That's just like what random Joe Schmoes are jerking off to for 5 minutes, and so that's going to get pushed up to the front. But it's like, what's really going on in mainstream porn is like these cinematic cameras with like massive crews. I mean, we're talking projects that cost tens of thousands of dollars to make, cameras, $20,000 cameras. I mean, this is not nothing. This is not like what you talk about.
It's just so different now. Like, that's what I think is the most exciting thing about where porn is right now, where it's like, it's not just people fucking on camera anymore. And I think it's almost like I don't want to get too fired up, but I feel like it's almost like a return to the golden age of porn, though, because it's going back to this whole different thing now, which I feel like it kind of went away from for a very long time.
Yeah, totally. Because, again, like capitalism destroys art.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, let's make the most generic stuff so we can make the most of it and
Mm-hmm.
pump it out there the most. And then like the cheaper and easier it is to produce, like the faster we get the return on our investment or whatever.
Yep.
And that's everything. That's
But
movies,
like,
that's TV shows. But with porn, it's the same thing. Like we used to see, or not me, but porn used to be in movie theaters. It was a thing you had to
yeah, in the
go and
70s.
do. Yeah. And just like as time has gone on, it's gotten just like sort of, it's hard to hold on to the artistry. But if you're looking, so nowadays, if you're looking in the right places, and that's kind of what I was getting around to, is like, yes, these things exist and they're valuable, but like you do have to spend money on it.
Yeah.
If you want to watch it, you have to pay to get the good stuff, and you have to search for what you're looking for. And like, as I guarantee you, there is great lesbian porn out there being made that lesbians and women will enjoy, but you have to find it and you have to spend a little bit of money. Like it's
Yeah.
not even that much,
No, it's really
like
not.
10, $20.
Yeah, I think it's just about finding like the right porn. And like also I think being a performer myself, I'm always wanting to explore more things because I'm like, it's like being any kind of artist, you need to keep consuming some amount of content to be like, okay, this is the shit that's inspiring me. And I feel like a lot of
Yes.
people, particularly in porn, get into this mindset of like, oh, I've done this, I know now. And
Yeah.
are like, I don't have to learn anything from anyone. And I follow like some trans people and queer people on social media who are into way harder kinks than me just because I'm like, I want to be exposed to this shit. Even if I'm not into it, I'm like, that there's two people in Michigan I can name on the top of my like head who are doing more extreme BDSM than me back home,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
In
that's,
Michigan, even.
yeah, for sure.
Well, and
Like,
that's another thing. That's another thing that's cool too, is like now, back when I started and for a very long time, I had to live adjacent to Los Angeles, and
yeah,
then more recently Vegas, or you could also live in Miami and have a career. But other than that, like that's it. That's where you have to be, or maybe
yeah,
Budapest. But now, again, like
anywhere.
everyone anywhere. And so that's why I felt, empowered that I could move to the Midwest and like still
Yeah.
do my thing and still find collaborators, because they're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
truly, like, just the growing scene in Chicago is crazy. Like, I just talked
yeah.
to someone on my podcast a few weeks ago, and they were just like, oh, yeah, I moved to Chicago, and now there's everyone making BDSM porn here. And it's just like, oh,
Awesome.
great. Like, it's just really everywhere. Or, like, oh, I had Siri on, and they're in Louisville and doing an entire porn career out of there. Or Ella Darling
Yes.
in Texas. And it's just like,
Yes.
you can really make a career anywhere now. And it's
Yeah.
just such a cool thing.
So we are going to have to talk a little bit about who you know in Chicago,
Oh,
because I
for
am
sure.
actively collecting people. But yeah, so, okay, well, I don't want to get too far away without asking you the question that I like to ask everybody. When was the first time in your life that you discovered that porn was a thing? Like sexual entertainment? Like, did you stumble on a
So,
magazine, or
so
what did it look like?
okay, so I dated the same girl from 7th grade until I think junior year. And their family was like hella accepting. I came out to them, I think, when I was like 12 or 13, like hella young. So
Yeah.
their family was like very open with sexual stuff. And my girlfriend showed me a porn site, and I was like so overwhelmed. I'm like, there's like so many penises everywhere. I don't like this. This is overwhelming. But like, I wasn't really that interested in porn. Like, I had some friends who had some trans porn. Maybe it was like a friend's older brother who had trans porn when I was like maybe like 10 or 11. And
Mhm.
like, no one was being transphobic about it. Everyone was just like, yeah, that girl's really hot and she has a dick. And I was just like, I don't know how this girl has a dick. I don't know what's going on. I didn't know about any
Yeah.
of that stuff yet. So I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, wow, there's just some girls who are really hot who have dicks, I guess. That was like my first exposure to trans porn. But actually, like watching porn, I didn't watch porn for the first time until I was like 18. I didn't masturbate for the first time until I was 18.
Oh my God.
I know. I just like didn't, I don't know. I just didn't really have that much of an interest, I guess. And I think
Yeah.
like part of it was like seeing stuff I identified with. Like, yeah, I had like different kinds of sex with my partners at the time through like high school, but like
Mhm.
it wasn't really anything like on my own that I ever wanted to do.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, that's So I can relate to that in some ways. When I was younger, I was like exploring my body a lot and touching myself and whatnot. But in the past 25 years, maybe even
Hmm.
more, I don't really. I play with myself alone very rarely.
Mm.
Only like once every few months, to be honest, because I just prefer that interaction with another person. It's the same thing with scenes. Like I
Mm.
do solo scenes when people order a custom or they want it or I'm getting paid, like, and I try to make it as interesting as I possibly can. But my preference is always to be with a partner. It's just so
Yeah.
much more dynamic and interesting.
Especially for
Um,
porn. Like, I didn't get into porn
yeah,
to masturbate. Like,
yeah,
I want to like live out the shit that I can't really do in the real world. And that's what I love about BDSM so
yeah.
much is you can do something like a gangbang or a public disgrace scene that in real life would be extremely possible, it'd be extremely dangerous, it would be
Dangerous,
extremely like you don't know these people, but in real
totally.
life in porn you can be like, "Oh, these are all professionals and I've worked with these people
Yes.
3 times. I know this person." And like I
It's
think
such
that's
a
the best part.
great it's such a safe space
Mhm.
to explore fantasies and things that you want to try, but yeah, so hard to put together in your life. I mean, gosh, could you imagine like if you didn't have any involvement, you didn't know any porn people and it's like, okay, but I really want to experience a gangbang. Like you have
So
to vet
hard.
so many people, you have to have friends, and then maybe you don't want to fuck your friends. So you're like, do you know people that I don't know? But also they all have to be tested and like
Yeah.
they all have to be respectful and like understand my boundaries and like
Yeah.
shit. Like that's so much that's just like with professionals, like we just like you can assume that there's gonna be a level of
For sure.
professionalism,
And you get
to
to make art out of it. Like, especially with like scary
totally.
BDSM things. Like, I'm terrified of electricity and
Yes.
I did an electricity
Same.
scene. And
You did.
I like hella cried in the scene. And after, I'm like, I'm glad
Yeah.
I have that on footage because if I did that in my own life, I would be like,
Yeah.
well, I did that scene and it's done with. But now it's like, oh,
Yeah. You
now it can be on a
captured it.
movie. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's like the best thing about that. And also, like, even in my real life, I, for a while, was like, okay, I need to find a Dom. I need to find all this stuff to make all this stuff happen in reality.
Right.
When I'm like, you can just channel this all into your work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, at which point did you feel that you understood that you wanted to engage with this type of sex work?
Like BDSM specifically, or
No, just like performing on camera, because like doing BDSM is something that you can explore in your personal life without having to be
yeah.
on camera. But like, it's a big step to be like, I'm going to do this and put it out there for the whole world to see.
I
Like,
mean, I was like thinking about it for a little while, right? Like when I first masturbated to porn on a porn site right after, I was like, how do I sign up? Sort of thing.
yeah,
Um so I graduated during the Great Recession in Michigan, so unemployment was like 20% or something. So
yeah,
also being trans during that, I had no prior job experience. So I just graduated high school. I went to like a semester of community college, just wasn't really my thing.
same.
And I was
Yeah,
trying to like be like, okay, so what should I do? Like I was
yeah,
booking concerts at the time and I was in bands, so I was like making some money with that. But eventually I was just like, I need to have more sustainable income. And I was thinking about camming for a while, and my partner at the time was like, let's do it together. And yeah, it was like definitely a money thing for sure. Like
yeah,
I think once I discovered more porn, it like I'm like, oh shit, this can be a real creative process and all this.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's definitely was like a way out of poverty and stuff. I grew up my family was pretty poor. My
hmm,
dad was homeless, my mom was like on food stamps, so it was like definitely a way to be like, okay, I can actually get out of this whole situation. And obviously it's taken me a lot further than I started. I mean, I never
yeah.
thought I would like just creatively before I started doing porn, my whole like goals were like maybe I can play a show in Chicago someday. That was like my highest level.
Wow.
So obviously all of this has been fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, but then did you find, you got into it as sort of like a route out of poverty,
Yeah.
but it seems like obviously it became much more than that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I never expected to move out to California. I just had one crash pad shoot and like a mainstream groovy shoot. And I was like, okay. I went back home and then I came out here for Pride and I shot a Dyke March scene with Maxine Holloway. And I was just like, holy fuck, that was such a great experience. And
Yes.
then I met Miss Berlin at Kink and they signed me up for Kink Live. I was camping at home, but my rent was only, I was living in downtown Grand Rapids and my rent was only like $150 a month.
Shut up.
So there was nights on Kink Live where I'd make straight up like $300. So it was like over 2 months, I was like, I have $1,000 saved. Plus I have first and last month's rent for moving to the Bay.
Wow.
And yeah, so I moved to Oakland and yeah, I was doing like 4 or 5 days a week at the Armory, which was a very bizarre experience to be working like a 9-to-5 porn job after just working in your bedroom for 3 years on a college campus.
Yeah.
And yeah, just some really crazy shit to like go into that. And it's kind of been the last 10 years of my life, I feel like.
Yeah. But now, I mean, it's like from what I can tell, what it looks like to me is that you have taken this on as like not only a great way to make a living, but also as this artistic expression for you. Not even just art, like the BDSM expression for you. That's like sort of, vital to your being.
Yeah, I think
is that okay to say?
Yeah, I think it's definitely both. I think being able to express these like to do these things and have this different performance, I think is just really important to me. Even just like the public disgrace style scene I shot, like just to see a trans woman body in that scene, like that shit doesn't exist anywhere.
Yes.
And just like me like watching, I'm like, holy fuck, this exists now.
I know.
And that's like the porn that really
you
spoke
put it
to
out
me.
there.
Yeah. I remember when I first saw that shit when I was like 19, I was just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm this is something I like to always say is like, I like to make the porn be the porn I want to see in the world, Yeah. To take that quote from Gandhi about being the change you want to see in the world. It's like with this industry, it's like, you know what? We can make the porn that we want to see. And that you have just done that. That's just like what you came and did.
I mean, I was always doing it. It was just finding like other people who got it. Because like Courtney and Ava reached out to me. Like we were hanging out, I think like 3 weeks after me moving here. And they're like, let's make a movie. Yeah. And came up with All the Fucking Mystic. So I think being from like a DIY mindset and like I was booking shows still, I think up until like the April that I moved out here. So it was like definitely doing DIY art was always kind of a big thing for me. So yeah, I was always going to be making the shit whether anyone cared or not, honestly.
Yes. And then it's just like finding that audience and it's so amazing. And of course, so you and I both make movies for we distribute under Trouble Films banner. So and Courtney likes to call it, it's a collective.
For sure.
Which I love that. So it's an art porn collective. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, we're just making what we like to make and then putting it out there and hoping that the people who want to see that are finding it. And I found that they are, but they always could be more. So troublefilms.com.
Yeah, for sure. Go there. There's so much of our porn there.
There's so much stuff, and it's just all through a queer lens. So it doesn't matter like what you are, what you identify as, but if you appreciate that sort of, like I don't want to say amateur because we're obviously not amateurs, we're professionals, but it's kind of that just we're not fulfilling a prescription of what a porn scene needs to be.
Yeah.
It's that reality porn almost of just like, here's 2 people or 5 or 8 who just like wanted to get together and make this awesome scene with like a concept around it. And you're seeing like genuine reactions and genuine passion. And like, I think that's important. And I think I know so many people who almost like have a desire to consume porn, but they're just not seeing what they want to be seeing. And it's like, this is where you can find that,
Yeah, I think it's just like with the porn on Trouble Films and like maybe other queer porn, and why I really like particularly lesbian BDSM is it's all like porn is a performance, right? It's a
Sure.
performance, but also, especially in like a BDSM scene, there's a moment where it becomes very real. Where
it can be both at the same time.
But like, I feel like porn is almost like this hyper organized version of sex where you're planning something 4 months ahead. People don't plan sex 4 months ahead. You know what I mean? You don't.
Yes.
It's almost like or like fighting, like where boxers or MMA fighters are like, I'm gonna fight this person in 3 months, and all this planning and everything you're doing is going into that. Where you're getting your nails done, that's for this. You're getting your hair done. You're doing anal training, whatever. And then there's that moment in the scene after it's rolling, or you get hit like a little bit harder than you were expecting, where it becomes very real. And that's the shit that really draws me in about particularly lesbian BDSM. Because there's always that moment in it where I think with some other forms of porn, there might be more performance to it or acting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Which that's kind of like what I feel like for me makes BDSM porn specifically special, because it becomes very real at one moment.
You can't, there's a certain point where it's like, you can't deny that was like, whoo, you got me.
That girl still has you tied up and you're still getting hit in your tits. Like there's, even though it's acting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, people always say that to me too. They're like, wow, your scenes are so real. You're a really good actress. And I'm like, that's not really, that's not right though.
I
you know
feel
what I'm
like
saying?
it's always like the first few minutes of a scene is acting, and then it starts to.
Yes. And even still, so like there are some things where, let's just say like in the non-BDSM, you're aware that there's a camera there and you're aware that people are watching this for entertainment, but I don't feel like I'm acting when I'm like kissing a girl or, playing, like sucking on titties. Like I'm into that. I'm really into that. So like, that's not acting for me,
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's this weird, like there's not a line drawn where it's like on this side it's acting and on this side it's genuine. It's just that like I'm aware that it's a performance, but at the same time I'm just letting myself enjoy what I'm doing. But I know where the camera is, and I might enjoy what I'm doing angled towards the camera a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like I talked about this on Outsports before. I'm like, I feel like it's equally like being a pro wrestler, because some of it's very like you're trying to make your partner look like the best at what they do in the world. You want to make them look like they're the best at fucking. So there's like some aspect of not being entirely real, but then there's also like the aspect of like figure skating where you have to make it look effortless, and it has to like.
Or even with wrestling, it's not entirely real, but it still looks amazing that they're really doing these acrobatic things.
Yeah. And then I think there's a part where it's almost like MMA, because it is very real, where you're seeing someone getting fucked right there, and they had to be able to be prepared to do that on camera, which is not an easy thing to do.
No.
Like, I think there's just so many levels to it, and that's why I always go back to like we're this weird hybrid of like athletes and artists in one.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
It's very hard, I think, to sometimes get a grasp of, because it feels so opposite ideas in some ways.
Yeah, but I love it. I mean, it's really comparing us to like professional sports players and stuff like that. It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back real quickly, and I want to talk a little bit about like your identity.
Yeah.
If that's okay. So first of all, how do you identify sexually?
I just identify as queer. I think most of my, like, I honestly only really date women. I dated one trans guy once. Mm-hmm. And then I literally like had to be like, you need to leave my house. I'm hooking up with this girl tonight. She's really hot. That was in college. So I think I'm a lesbian, but like so much of my sexuality is around like BDSM and stuff, where even if I'm like doing a straight scene, I'm still thinking about like some humiliation thing in my head.
Yeah.
Or like some like vanilla scene, but like I think I'm open to men in a BDSM context, but even that I'm like maybe, but I think it's just more being into BDSM than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I was curious, like, if you have sexual attraction towards cis men at all.
Like, there's some men who I'm like, they're objectively attractive, but like, I don't know what to do about it. I don't want to. I definitely don't want to like really talk to cis men.
Yeah.
Like, your husband's one of the few cis men I know, like, I can count them on my hands, basically, where I'm like, cis men who've been in my house. Like,
right.
maybe like 4.
Yeah. 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 And he's a very safe,
and like,
man.
he's
and
like the closest to straight of any cis man who's been to my house. So I'm like, it's often gay cis men who go to my house. I'm like, you still have to talk about how men are bad, though, for us to be cool. Where I'm just like,
understood.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you didn't really like, you didn't explore your own body that much when you were growing up and young.
For sure.
At which point did you understand that you were a woman?
Well, like, I always got read as a girl, like, since I was hella young, like, since I could remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at some point it's like kind of clicked of like, oh shit, probably like under 10, I would assume, but I didn't like have any words for it until probably I was like 12 or something. But even that, like, the whole trapped in the wrong body narrative, I'm like, I don't necessarily feel that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I've kind of always looked like this, and I've always had like heightened estrogen levels, and so I've like always been hella small, and I don't know, all my features are very small, so it's kind of weird. Like, I have pretty small hands, feet. In high school, I was like 100 pounds, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wasn't until like I got on like legit hormones and shit until I started gaining weight, so. I don't know. Yeah. It's a weird kind of situation where I'm just like, I don't know how much of that was from hormonal shit, how much of it is from, like, I was on Adderall through a lot of high school, so I was like hella skinny. So I don't know. It's kind of always kind of been a thing, you know?
Yeah. So, well, I guess your family is sort of the next natural question is like, did they always read you as a girl from the time you were, very small? Or was there like this acceptance moment that had to happen with them? Or
I mean, no, my family was really... So my mom and stepdad were hella shitty until Caitlyn Jenner happened. And then they're like...
Whoa, that was recent.
Yeah, right? And they're like, we understand now. I'm like, what the fuck?
God.
But I came out when I was like 13 years old. So
yeah.
And like, obviously all my family knew everywhere I went, they would be like, staff or whatever, always read me as a girl since I was like 5 years old. So it's like, a really weird thing.
Like, even in school and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes. Like, it was always like something was up.
Yeah. And so it was, well, I mean, so a lot of people, I think they struggle with like the family will continue like using your dead name or using the wrong pronouns, and
I don't
like
have
a
dead name either. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't have a dead name. So
okay.
I have a very gender neutral name, so there wasn't really any of that. Both my first and last legal name are very uncommon, at least here. I just go by Chelsea everywhere just because it's easier. I don't have to explain the concept of my name to people.
Yeah, totally.
So it's it's weird because there's a lot of trans experiences like that where people are like, well, your dead name. I'm like, I don't have that. Or like being like, when you were a man, I'm like, I came out when I was 12. I was watching Nickelodeon still.
Yeah.
So it's just like, there's a lot of experiences that I didn't really identify with. And I think that's also like part of the reason why my generation of trans performers, I think, were more accepted because everyone kind of figured their shit out when they were a teen.
Yeah.
So like Aubrey Kate or Bailey J or like most people I know who are in porn as trans women, most of us figured out very early, where I feel like when I first got into this industry, there were a lot of trans women who were like, oh, I transitioned at 40 and now I'm a porn star, Yeah,
that happens a lot too. I mean, anytime in your life when you make the realization or that you need to make that change for yourself, like,
I mean, like, yeah, I guess when I was like 12 or 13, I guess. I just Oh, yeah,
That
I get what you're saying.
yeah, but it sounds like you didn't have a lot of struggle with your family at least accepting you,
Uh,
or
kind
how
of.
did it?
I mean, like, my family's drama was way bigger. Like, when you have family who's, like,
Yeah,
homeless and shit, and, like,
right.
just really dysfunctional shit, or people are in poverty, like,
Yeah,
I had to deal with shit from my mom and stepdad, but that was, like, after I left, honestly, because,
right.
yeah, I was basically on my own since 18, so,
Yeah,
like, who really cares what they're saying? I'm paying my own rent however I'm getting it, you know? It's not
right.
like they're,
Exactly. Yeah,
like, having financial support over me or I'm having to live with
right.
them, so,
Yeah,
and then with porn, I mean, everyone in my family was pretty cool, and especially now because they're like people from where I'm from don't move to California and become successful and win awards in
yeah,
Hollywood and shit. So everyone's just like, holy fuck.
yeah, yeah.
So when you're winning shit, I feel like people are like very down for it. So
Right. It's like they can see this external validation,
yeah, for
and
sure.
that they're like, well, then I guess maybe it is okay for me to be okay with this.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
you know what?
definitely the case.
I'm kind of like I wish it didn't have to be that way, but I'm like how whatever it takes for you to get there,
Yeah,
whatever it takes, just get there, please. Like,
I mean, just where I'm from, like even just living in California, that's success, you know?
right?
So
Yeah.
that's just like such a whole different mindset. People from Michigan don't really go to California and pursue
Anything.
anything. They're like, oh, if you might move to the big city of Chicago, like that's kind of the
Yeah,
level.
yeah. So yeah, I talked to you a little bit about this, but
Hmm.
I noticed it was several years ago at this point, but you were, arguing with someone on Twitter.
Yes.
People on Twitter are really great about telling us like how we're supposed to be human and stuff.
Hmm.
And so they were saying, I can't remember exactly what it went, but you mentioned to them that you might even be intersex.
Yeah.
And I think I watched this documentary about intersex people, and I it bothers me that there are so many who kind of pretend like that is not a thing that exists at all, or that it's
Hmm.
such a small amount of people that it doesn't even matter. And that's so fucking dehumanizing. And when I watched this documentary, and it's like the same amount of people are born intersex as are born like redheads.
Yep.
So that's a lot of
That's
people
a lot of fucking
actually.
people.
And to know that they're so underrepresented that it's like people pretend like they don't even exist. And I think that's a problem. And but I'm wondering if you had any sort of like genetic testing done or anything like that, or like how did you
um,
come to the realization that that could be part of who you are?
yeah. I've naturally always had really like high estrogen levels, I found out. And the doctor's like, well, obviously something's probably causing that. And they're
Yeah,
like, we can go through all these tests and try to figure all that stuff out. And I'm like,
yeah,
it doesn't really change anything in my life.
yeah,
Like, I know my body doesn't make sense, even as a trans woman, a lot of times, because I'm like, I'm very short. Even I'm Dutch, so I should be really tall, but I'm like the average height for a Dutch woman, which is only which is 5'6". So like that doesn't
yeah,
add up. All my feature size doesn't really add up. Kind of how much going on hormones have instantly got me everything essentially. Like
yeah,
it's just like really crazy when you start to think about your body in that way and you start adding the
yeah.
things up. And for me, I think I first had self-doubt where I'm like, oh no, has to be something else related, because I was feeling dysphoric about it. But
Hmm.
just like hearing a doctor be like, well, obviously something's producing this to have it
Yeah,
be the case. So
yeah. So when you went on hormone therapy, is it like different levels because you already created so much estrogen
so
yourself, or what
crazy
does that look like?
shit. So I didn't have access to medical care until I moved here, so like 22, something like that.
Yeah,
And I started
yeah.
doing hormones when I was a teenager. And I was
Hmm.
just ordering them offline, and I was getting them. You can get them
Yeah.
shipped from, I think it's Palau, which is a tiny island in the South Pacific. But I was doing that.
Yes.
I was getting herbal estrogen off of Amazon, which you still can get for like women who
Hmm.
are going through menopause.
Oh yeah.
So I was just doing it myself and just trying to feel it out. And
Yeah.
I've never had to change my dose. I've gone to a real doctor and they're like, oh no, you're perfectly great right now.
Awesome.
So it's a pretty weird thing, but yeah, in general, I feel like when you've been on this shit for so long, you don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because I started as a teenager and now I'm 31. So it's like,
yeah,
I've done this for 11 years. It's just taking a fucking pill every day now. Like, it's not even a thing where I feel like it's gender affirming. It's just like,
that's just part of your life.
Yeah, and eventually you stop taking them because apparently trans women go through a menopause and you purposely do that. And I'm like, now I'm like, with all this legalization in this country about being trans and shit, I'm like, I only have like 10 years, I only have like 10, 20 years left. I'm fine. So I'm like, nothing's going away. Like, these boobs aren't going to disappear.
Well, you're just DIY about so many things. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. Also, being from like a small town in the Midwest, there just wasn't that many. There wasn't like that much already existing. So like I had to found the first like trans organization in Grand Rapids at like 20 years old because there wasn't one.
Yeah.
So it's just like there's so many things like you just literally had to do it.
Yeah.
Or no one else would.
Yeah, I mean, I look up to you so much for all of that. Well, you're an activist. I mean, like a legit one. Like you did that yourself. Like, I think sometimes about doing stuff like that, and I'm just like, where would I even start? Like, I don't even know. You know, you went and you found it out, and you just fucking made it happen. Like, I think that's so amazing. And then again, like, let me just say one more time how incredible it is that you changed the fucking industry. Like, I feel like the fact that even trans lesbian porn being mainstream now, like mainstream companies making it, that would not have happened if it weren't for you and like the pushing that you did at the time that you did it. So just thank you.
I'm just glad there's more shit. And like, just like going to AVN, I guess it's now fucking 2 months ago. That's crazy. But it was like 20% trans people there. And I'm just like, other than Pride, I'm like, I haven't been to a place with this many trans people before.
Yeah. Well, and the amount of the Trans Erotica Awards, like when those started.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that wouldn't have been a thing.
Oh, well, they changed it because of like, I was bitching about it a bit. And then they changed it. And then I went and I had my whole Taylor Swift moment. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh my God. Please tell the story.
Oh my God. I nearly quit. I tried to quit porn that night.
Oh my gosh. So what year was this?
This was 2015. So it was right after I started the petition. It was like a year in. I had like the most heat in the trans porn world. Everyone fucking hated me. I was like, some girl might try to fight me this night.
Oh my goodness.
So the person to open up the award show just unloaded on me for the first 15 minutes from on stage. I was in the front row, just like going off, being like, how dare anyone?
This was a trans woman.
Of course it was.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Again, porn was so mean. And they like were like going off. They're like, why are some people trying to change the terms? We know what we are. We're chicks with dicks and shit over like the whole PA. Wow. Just like, what the fuck? Also, I lost my phone. I left it in the Uber on the way there, so I didn't have my phone. And I'm up for 5 awards. So this happens. I'm like completely tripping. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? How am I having this moment? So then I lost 5 awards in a row.
Right.
And then I tried to quit porn that night. And then Courtney was like, hey, I hear you. I fully support you doing this. We have a shoot playing with you and Carla tomorrow. Do you still want to do that? Do you just want to try one more shoot? And I did it. It was a great scene. And then I didn't quit porn.
Yay.
But even like the next night, like everyone was like, you need to go to the after party thing the day after. And I was like, no, I'm going to, that was like the first and only time I went to like a real Hollywood club.
Oh.
It was the Roosevelt. It was Teddy's in the Roosevelt, and that's like where Lindsay Lohan used to party and like Paris Hilton and shit.
Yeah.
And I was very into that wave of pop culture. So I was very stoked. But there were girls being like, you need to go to the T Award after party and I need to discuss shit with you. And like, I'm like, no.
Oh my God.
And that was like the last time I had anything to really do with that part of trans porn. Because I'm just like bad. But the really great thing is how many? So that was 2015. So 6 years later, at the same venue, I won the Why Not Performer of the
Cameras?
Year.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I feel like
Yes.
I had a full circle moment with that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
that was definitely probably the worst night of my career.
Well, I could feel that for you. I can empathize with that for you, like, because fuck, you were like red, right? Like you were just sitting there like, what the fuck is this really happening? And especially because when your intentions were like the best,
Also,
the best.
I was living on a college campus like 6 months before. So it was like
Yeah.
this 45-year-old trans woman just laying into me for like, I was
Yeah.
22.
Right. But that's the thing with talk about like the old guard, they
Yeah.
don't want things to change. They're like, this is what works for us. And, sorry, but 20 years younger than you, like better things can work for you too. You just have to give it a chance.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's so frustrating though.
I'm shocked. I feel like everyone I know knew that story, so I'm.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't hear it.
Oh yeah, Ray actually. There's a trans porn textbook for like porn studies, and it's in there that day. I'm like,
beautiful.
At least my Taylor Swift moment is in a textbook now. So
yes. Oh my god, I love it. I love it. But so I mean, and since then, I hope it's a bit different since 2015. I mean, shit.
Yeah,
like,
all those people are gone.
Yeah, exactly. And there's different people, with their own issues, but I think I went to the Tees. Did I go this past year? Maybe the year before. I don't know. Time, it's a construct, but but it was great to just. Yeah, I mean, as a person who heavily identifies queer, to be in that space and have that celebration of queerness, that's kind of what it felt like to me. And not just a celebration of queerness, but like a celebration of queerness in porn.
That was not my experience.
But yeah, but that's what I'm saying, like 2015 versus 2021 or whenever it was, 22. Like,
people are nicer in porn now. Like, people were just so hostile back then. And
yes,
I think it was like because you had to only get like there's only so many jobs and stuff.
Exactly.
And,
it was more competitive.
Yeah, and even like there wasn't a trans award at AVN until 2004. Yeah. So, and then there weren't trans women on stage until 2012. So if I look at it like that, I'm like, when I came into all this, it was only 9 years in where trans people were even at AVN.
Yeah, like even being recognized at all.
So I can understand how it's like different levels. And now there's trans people who go to AVN and they're like, I got misgendered by someone in the staff. And they're like, we need to hold these people accountable. And I'm like, back when I started porn, it was the Tranny Awards and it was sponsored by gmail.com and Tranny Strokers and Tranny Whacker. And it's just like such a different world, which I'm like, I'm very happy that the youth are calling all this shit out because it's very necessary. Same. But I just feel so fucking old now. 10 years in porn makes you feel so old. I feel like I'm 45, like 50, 60 years old.
Yeah. And you realize you're talking to someone who's been in porn for 20 years.
I know. I'm like, anything over 5 years, you're like, wow, I'm fucking old.
I'm a grandma.
Right?
Yeah. But so I think this is just one thing that I really want to highlight because something that happens to me a lot is I'll get on my OnlyFans DMs or Instagram DMs or even on Twitter. And they're men and they're like want to be supportive. They're like, "Oh, where can I watch your videos where you're with a slur?" I always take those moments and use them as teaching moments and so that's kind of like what I want to do right now. So there are just some terms that are dehumanizing and we don't use those terms anymore. When you want to refer to a trans woman, that's what you say, or you say a trans person. I don't like saying the words, but Chelsea said them. Like, we just don't use those terms anymore. And so if you are a man and if you're a cis man and you want to be supportive
can you not
lesbianism, you want to partake in it, you want to consume it and watch it, like
trans lesbianism. It's really funny.
Just please don't say those terms, like, you know, say trans. That's the word.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't be weird. I feel like that's all this shit comes back to. Just don't be weird.
Just be like, that's a person. And yeah, like, you're weird. When you be weird, like, well, there's different kinds of weird, I guess. I mean, we are the weirdos, mister. Yeah.
I feel like I'm very boring now. I just have an interesting job. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And it is. People are fucking fascinated with this job. It's just, could you be fascinated in a curious way and not like a weird way?
I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's people just like want to hear juicy things. And then when you hear about like the real, like I had a memory pop up from someone who we both worked with recently. And it was like, oh my God, I might have to perform at 5 a.m. because someone's flight got delayed and my flight's at 8 a.m. So we have to have this entire production counting on two 24-year-olds who are super sleep deprived, you know? And like that's the bad stuff that happens in porn. It's not necessarily like people want like horror stories like, oh my God, I was forced to do this, this, or this. And that's usually not how it goes. It's just like
No.
shit like that where it's like, yeah, I had to perform in a really uncomfortable situation, or there was this chaos that happened, or this chaos. And I think that's like the reality of porn, but people want it to be way juicier, and it never really is. Because people are like, oh, the sex part's like the scarring part of porn. It's like, I don't.
Right.
I'm like, it could be, but like all my bad memories with porn are shit like performing at a really bad time, having shit get canceled last minute, like that.
That's the thing. When people don't show up, when you have a booking and you show up and you're there and the other person doesn't show up. Or like when I have booked someone for a custom and I'm like, so are you coming? Or we booked trade and then I went and paid for a test just to do that trade scene. And then they call me an hour before and say, oh, sorry, some fake excuse that I totally know is bullshit. Those are the stories. Like, that's what hurts me the most.
Yeah, I had a forced vacation in Vegas a few weeks ago after some canceled shoots. I feel it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was like, no, especially if you're paying your own money to get out to the shoot. Like if you have to fly somewhere, that's such a burden.
Yeah.
That's money, that's time, that's travel. Like,
yep. It is. I'm very, and there's some else who are in not a good financial situation where that can literally be catastrophic. And
absolutely,
I'm just very lucky that I'm not in that place right now, because there definitely were times in my life where I could not handle that.
Yeah. So painful.
For sure.
Yeah, but awesome. Well, now, luckily you're thriving. You're thriving, darling.
Yeah, it's going good, I think, overall.
Yeah, well, you just came out with a new movie.
Yeah, I released 2 movies this year, which is crazy because
Wait, you mean like since January?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
I released Chelsea Submits 2, which you're in, and then I released The Dinner Party, which is my public disgrace scene.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know. I was so disappointed I wasn't able to make it to that one.
We're going to do a second one, so
okay.
There'll be an opportunity.
Awesome. Let's get the timing right.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm sure. I think it will happen. Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like porn's finally like coming fully back after the pandemic. Like that's what this last year has been for me. The last like 3 months have been super busy, and also like mainstream opportunities I never really expected to come. So
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it at all?
I mean, I didn't get it, but yeah, I went through the audition process for an A24 film 2 weeks ago. Wait, no, that's like a month ago now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just crazy to get the opportunity as a sex worker and just really have to get into the mindset of like, oh my God, I have to talk these people into trusting me with multi-million dollars for a film, and be like, you know, the girl who just got banged on a table, cake in her hair, you need to which I'm like, I can't even be mad. I'm like, you just won 1 million fucking Oscars, and you like, I understand why you didn't choose the porn girl for
But just honestly having that
Yeah,
opportunity, that's such a big
for
deal.
real.
Like getting to audition and like be a part of that process, amazing. And like I'm a huge fan of A24 movies in general,
Same.
but they also like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like best movie, one of the best movies of all time,
Yeah,
for sure.
a million percent.
But they also do a lot of horror, and I am a huge fan of horror movies. And the horror movies that they produce, they're all unique and like interesting, have like either amazing cinematography or like intriguing stories that have lots of layers. And so that's why I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it's my favorite
So,
production company by far. Like, I would say probably 4
absolutely.
out of my 5 favorite movies are from them. So, just
Hell
being able to be
yes.
like, this is the hip shit I'm on right now. That I'm just like, this is great. I'm getting
Yes.
to shoot BDSM full time and also have these opportunities. It's couldn't have imagined it, 10
Yeah.
years ago. But like,
Yes.
I feel like porn stars just aren't really given these opportunities. And it seems like it's happening more, like
Totally.
with Chloe Cherry, like Sasha Grey back in the day, obviously. Like, it's just really
Mm-hmm.
cool that there's starting to become more openings, that we're at least even getting in the room for these auditions and conversations and shit. Which I think is just so
Exactly.
important to me, that there's all this stuff. But also, I did have the moment of like, oh my God, is this going to be the thing that makes me, like, pushes me away from porn, you know?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
I genuinely love this industry so much, and I love doing sex work, and especially being Dutch, it's such part of our culture that I'm like, that I get to continuously do this shit. This
Yeah.
makes me feel like honestly really complete as a person, both like, it makes sense in my life to be like, you're from this weird Dutch city, and then you get out of poverty through sex work. And then when I started doing shit in the Netherlands, I was like, holy fuck, this is where I'm from. This is, a whole thing. So
Yeah. It's your roots.
yeah, I want to be doing porn forever.
Same.
When I'm 70,
Yeah.
I want to be doing porn.
Yep. As long as I can do it, I want to be doing it. Cool. Well, would you be willing to answer a couple questions with me from some listeners?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So, question one. Hi, Sin. I've been trying to explore my own sexuality by myself. Do you have any advice on things I should try to better know myself and my desires and kinks? That's from A. Okay, so that's a great question
Yeah.
for you to answer, because it sounds like you kind of somehow discovered all this about yourself.
Yeah, watch a bunch of different kinds of porn. Like, discover weird fetishes that maybe you don't want, or like you don't know that you're into. I think a big part of sexuality is like discovering the parts that maybe you don't even want to admit you're into. So
Right.
I think like really just going down that wormhole and really trying to figure it out. I think particularly in porn, we have to have a very working knowledge of our sexuality, where
Yeah.
especially like I squirt really hard. And I feel like that's just kind of become part of my performance now, where I need to access all parts of my sexuality kind of on any given moment, whether it's a scene at 5 a.m. where I'm super tired and I feel like I can't perform, or there's just all these difficulties, or whether it's just a regular scene. Like, I think just having a working knowledge of your sexuality is so important. And I feel like it's something most people outside of this industry don't have. So I would just say, like, keep exploring all sorts of things that you might not even know you're into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like seeking out fetishy porn.
Yeah, if that's your thing, or if you're into other stuff, just
Mm-hmm.
like honestly, just dive into whatever you are
Yeah,
interested in.
because I think they didn't even necessarily see. Yeah, myself, my desires, and my kinks. So yeah, not even necessarily like fetishy, but it is just like watch various different things. Also, I think, because I have an idea of who this person is, that reading erotica. I think like that we have so much visual media now, and it's just like we got to find those videos. But there's people on the internet write erotic literature, so
Mhm.
short stories for you to get off to. There's a site called Dipsea that is erotic audio. So they have, which I'm going to audition for, by the way,
Hell yeah.
as soon as I get myself set up more with like a little recording studio space here. But so that it's like it's actors playing out a story
Mhm.
for you to listen to. So you don't even have to watch, or, you can watch porn if you want to, but I'm just saying there are options out there. And I think like imagining like lying on your bed, wearing headphones, closing your eyes and listening to a story and then exploring your body that way, like that sounds hot.
Yeah, I also think it's like important to be like, hey, I might kind of be into this. Like, for me, there's like all these different fetishes that I'm like vaguely into, but like regular ass lesbian BDSM, that's like how I really come hard. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
other things where I'm like, oh, age play is all right. Like, it's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm like kind of into it, but like, it's okay to be sort of into some things and then really figuring out what your main thing is and just kind of like having a real understanding of it. I think is really important. And it's also going to fluctuate. You might be into something else for a while, or you might be into something. Like,
Yeah,
I watch
totally.
pony girl porn like twice a year. I don't know why. I think it's always like around the Kentucky Derby where I'm like, oh, maybe I am into this fetish.
Yes. Yeah, so like exploring the stuff that you get yourself into to see if it resonates with you. And even things that you like, I don't even know if I would like this, but try it.
Yeah.
And see, if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But like you said too, it's like we change on our spectrum of sexuality just changes all the time throughout the years. Like really into one thing for a while and then like not really into that for a while. And then maybe it comes back later. And that's so many things with regards to being a person, I guess.
For real. Yeah, I think it's just exploring and not really having judgment about it.
Yes, not having judgment about it, not judging yourself about it. And that's huge with everything. All right, cool. All right, we'll do one more question.
Great.
Hello, Sin. There's this girl who I was talking to recently. We seem to be having a lot of fun. She'd want me to go somewhere with her, sometimes with her friends, sometimes alone. We would do work together alone at her place. We'd eat together. We'd talk about books. We've been doing this for a month, and I finally asked her if we're just friends. She said she is currently seeing someone and that she wanted to tell me earlier, but she didn't have a chance to. She said that she still wants to be friends, but I politely declined. I said that I like her too much and it would be torture for us to be friends while I feel the way I do at this time. She said, okay, and that's it. But she still texts me every day. It's really messing with my emotions. Is there a way I can politely tell her that I need some space? I'm sure over time I will be emotionally ready to be friends with her, but I need a little time to myself to work that out,
That is obviously from a lesbian, correct?
Yeah.
I'm
well, I definitely appreciate when people tell me like what their gender identity is in the question. This person did not. But it sounds like
that sounds like a lesbian problem. Damn.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. Dating's so fucking hard. I legitimately feel I never want, like, I'm engaged and we're like mostly monogamous, but like even apart from that, I'm like, I don't think I'd ever date anyone ever again. It's so stressful and so hard, especially lesbian dating, because like you can be like, oh yeah, they live at my house right now. I don't know if we're real though. Like lesbian relationships can be so much like that. Be like, we tell each other we love you, but like, are we really dating? That's really hard.
Well, and there's with dating, like, so I only did it a very brief amount of time, but what I noticed in that very, very short amount of time was that like people play games, like they just present themselves like what they think the person wants them to be so that they like them or whatever, and it's just like that doesn't work long term. Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like the only way to date is to just be you 100%, and then you'll find the person who likes that.
Yeah.
Because if you're pretending to be something else, like it's not gonna work.
Yeah. I'm like not telling this person to ghost, but like also if you just need space, just like maybe don't. See, that's not a good answer. I'm encouraging bad behavior.
Well, yeah, don't. I would say this was what my advice would be a little bit here. Is like, you basically already set your boundary with this person. You said to them, I would love to, you politely declined being their friend.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if when you did that, if you gave the reason as to why, but maybe to this person, like they aren't understanding what your reason is of why you asked why you said you didn't want to be friends right now. So for me, like if it was me and I was in your position, I would write a text message and I would say, I'd be very polite again. And I would say very clearly, listen, these are my boundaries with you. You are in a relationship. I am romantically and sexually attracted to you. That is what I want from like a friendship with you. And you've made it clear that I can't have that. Right now, that's too much for me. So I'm asking you to please stop contacting me. And like, if a time comes in the future where I have been able to process this and get over it and through it, like maybe down the line, we can actually be just friends. But as of right now, it's too raw and sensitive for me. So I'm going to ask you to please cut the communication until a future date. Please, that's the boundary I'm setting with you. Can you please respect it? It's just, there are these situations where like the only answer literally is to be
direct,
upfront, direct, and communicative. Like you have to say the words, you have to use your words in a clear and direct way. Then hopefully this person would like get the hint, or which is not even a hint at that point, like you told them. But hopefully at that point they can respect that boundary. After that, if they were to still continue trying to text with you, that's when you just block their number. Because you laid it down, you put your foot down and you said, this is what I need right now. And they continued to disrespect that and not respect that boundary of yours. So in that case, even they would just be showing that they're not even relationship material really, because they don't understand that,
Wow.
So.
You gave such a good like therapist answer too. Damn. I'm like, I wouldn't respond to that. Just don't make eye contact with them.
Well, I think it's a big thing is like being non-confrontational. Yeah. None of us want confrontation.
For sure.
But then that's how you have all these like mixed up emotions and all these like sitcom style misunderstandings where it's like if the people would have just said the thing they meant, we wouldn't have half an hour of show.
Yeah, you really just need to be direct and not do that. But dating is fucking hard. Also, like lesbian dating's really hard because there's so much gray area where you're like, I'm spending every day with this person. And we're holding hands, but there's nothing there or something weird like that. Also, like if you're from a smaller community, like where I'm from, I have to be friends with all my exes because there's only like 30 lesbians. So I'm like, I don't have room in Michigan to have enemies who are my exes. In the Bay, it's fine.
Right.
If I have an ex in New York, oh well, there's 24 million people there. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But still, you got to be direct.
Yeah. That's how you should be.
Got to do it. All right. Well, thank you so much for helping me answer those questions.
Of course.
And I'm just such a fan. So
likewise.
Please tell everyone where they can find your stuff.
Yeah. I have a website, chelseasimmons.com. It's all my BDSM work. The Performers Pod is on Spotify, Apple Podcast. All the other ones, I'm also on an Outsports podcast about college football and professional football, which is a little other way, left field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you like sports. I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm a huge Michigan football fan, as you can tell here. If you're born in Michigan, you're just like born into it. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Chelsea Poe 666. You can find my newest film, The Dinner Party, on my website, chelseasimmons.com, and my Instagram is @FakeChelseaPoe. I think that's everything.
That's all your things?
I think so. Oh, I cam on Chatterbait, Treasure Cams, and Minivids, so you can catch me.
But we can find all your stuff through your website, right?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff there. Oh, I have screenings coming up in Austria, Greece, and Massachusetts, so if you're in any of those areas, check it out.
Yes, go to her website and find out all the places to be, the things to see. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And
Thank
if
you.
anybody, and I really would love to hear your questions. Anyone who's listening right now, please submit your questions and you might hear them on a future podcast. So you can do that by emailing your questions to sinsagepodcast@gmail.com. And of course, you spell sin with 2 N's, as in Nancy, sinsagepodcast@gmail.com. And of course, my website is sin-sage.com, so you can find everything about me there. And thank you so, so much for listening. Now, have a wonderful rest of your night and get out there and be authentic.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.